Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, are reportedly preparing for a dramatic return to Britain. But according to an explosive new claim, this may have far less to do with repairing their relationship with the royal family than we have been led to believe. Because Lady Colin Campbell, royal biographer and author of Diana in Private, is now alleging that Harry's situation in the United States has suddenly become much more serious. She claims US federal authorities have been looking into paperwork connected to Harry's immigration status, and that there are concerns over whether he was completely truthful when he entered the country. And according to Lady C, Harry and Meghan's apparent decision to move back to Britain came just as that situation was escalating. Now, I need to make something very clear from the beginning. These are allegations made by Lady Colin Campbell. There has been no public confirmation from US federal authorities that Prince Harry is facing arrest, and Harry has not been charged with a crime. But the timing she describes is certainly interesting, because if her information is correct, it could completely change the story behind this sudden return to Britain. So what exactly is being alleged? Why would Harry leaving America potentially matter? And perhaps most importantly, why would Meghan agree to return to a country she was once so desperate to leave, particularly after what many called Megxit reshaped the entire royal family? Because there could be much more going on here than a simple royal reconciliation. The claim that changes everything. For years, there have been questions surrounding Harry's US immigration records. A lot of that controversy comes back to Harry's own admissions about past drug use in his memoir Spare, which led to questions over what exactly he disclosed when applying to enter and remain in America. But Lady Colin Campbell, whose royal biographer credentials stretch back decades, including her work on Diana, Princess of Wales, is now taking those questions considerably further. Speaking to Dan Wootton, the GB News presenter, she claimed she began receiving information on August 12th about supposed activity involving Harry's immigration paperwork. According to her account, there had been a meeting involving federal authorities the previous day, August 11th, where paperwork Harry submitted in connection with his US immigration status was allegedly being examined. Lady C claimed there was a belief among those involved that Harry may not have been truthful on those documents. Again, that is her allegation. There has been no public announcement from US authorities confirming this. But Lady C then made an even bigger claim. She suggested Harry and Meghan realised that if they didn't leave America voluntarily, they risked the situation becoming considerably more embarrassing. In her words, they understood that if they didn't jump, Harry could potentially be pushed. And that brings us to the timing. Because according to the transcript, the alleged federal scrutiny began around August 11th. Within days, Harry and Meghan were suddenly being linked to a move back to Britain. Lady C described the entire situation as rushed, claiming that on August 10 there had been no indication of an immediate problem, but that within 8 or 9 days, everything had apparently changed. If that timeline is accurate, it raises an obvious question. Is this really about family? Or did something happen behind the scenes that suddenly made leaving California look like the safest option? The official explanation is very different, because the explanation reportedly coming from the Sussex camp sounds much more wholesome. According to reporting discussed in the interview, Harry and Meghan want to be closer to King Charles III, and they supposedly want Archie and Lilibet to develop relationships with their British relatives. The suggestion is that their July reunion with Charles helped change Harry's thinking, and that the Sussexes now see Britain as an important part of their children's lives. And on the surface, that is completely plausible. Harry has repeatedly spoken about his love for Britain. His father is there, much of his family is there, his charitable connections are there, including the Invictus Games, the sporting event for wounded veterans that remains one of his most personal projects. But Meghan? That is where this gets interesting. Meghan returning to Britain permanently would be a huge reversal. She and Harry didn't simply move abroad for work. They built an entirely new life in California after one of the most bitter royal departures in modern history, what the press immediately branded Megxit. Their Montecito home became symbolic of that new life. So why would Meghan suddenly pack up and return? Lady C's theory is that Meghan may initially return because it strengthens the credibility of the move. If Harry leaves America while Meghan and the children remain permanently in California, people immediately start asking questions about the marriage and about why Harry actually left. But if all four of them relocate, suddenly it looks like a family decision. And then there are the children. This is the part of the story that could become even more important later. Lady C suggested that bringing Archie and Lilibet back to Britain could significantly change Harry's position if his marriage to Meghan were ever to break down. The argument is simple. Right now, the children's established home is in California. If Harry moved back to Britain alone and the marriage eventually ended, trying to relocate Archie and Lilibet across the Atlantic could become extremely complicated. But what happens if Meghan moves with him? What happens if the children begin living in Britain and, as suggested in the interview, potentially attend school there? Suddenly, the circumstances are completely different. This raises the possibility that getting Meghan and the children established in Britain could leave Harry in a stronger position if there were ever a permanent separation. Now, there is no confirmation Harry and Meghan are planning to divorce, but rumours surrounding their marriage have been circulating for some time, which makes the prospect of Meghan willingly moving the children to Britain even more intriguing. Because if their relationship is perfectly secure, perhaps none of this matters. But if it isn't? This move could have consequences neither of them could easily undo. There's another reason the timing matters. Money. And this is where the story becomes surprisingly complicated. The interview also raised the possibility that 2026 happens to be an extremely convenient time for Harry and Meghan to become UK residents again. They left Britain in 2020. According to UK tax specialist Nimish Shah, the couple have now completed 6 full UK tax years as non-residents. The significance of that is Britain's temporary non-residence rules. Very simply, those rules can affect how certain gains made while someone is living abroad are treated if that person returns to Britain too quickly. Harry and Meghan have now been away long enough that, according to the experts, the timing of a 2026 return could be financially advantageous. So suddenly, there isn't just one possible reason for moving. There are several. Harry wants to be closer to his father. They want Archie and Lilibet to know their British family. The timing could make financial sense. And now, Lady Colin Campbell is claiming there is another, much more urgent reason involving Harry's status in America. That doesn't prove her allegation, but it certainly makes the timing worth watching. But returning to Britain doesn't mean returning to royal life. And this may be the biggest misconception surrounding this entire story. Harry moving back to Britain does not mean William suddenly welcomes him back into the fold. It doesn't mean Meghan becomes a working royal again. And it certainly doesn't mean everything that happened over the last 6 years simply disappears. The relationship between Harry and Prince William, Prince of Wales, remains badly damaged. Harry's relationship with Catherine, Princess of Wales, has also suffered enormously. And even if King Charles III wants a relationship with his younger son and grandchildren, that is very different from allowing Harry and Meghan back into the working monarchy. According to the interview, Harry has already been linked to the possibility of discussions with Charles about some form of royal return. But that would be an enormous decision. Remember what happened after Harry and Meghan left? The Oprah interview, the Netflix documentary, Harry's memoir, Spare, the accusations against the institution, private family conversations repeatedly becoming public. From William's perspective, the issue may no longer be anger. It may simply be trust. And living 20 minutes away instead of 5,000 miles away doesn't automatically rebuild that. regardless of what Queen Elizabeth II might once have hoped for the family she worked her entire life to hold together. So what happens now? This could turn out to be one of the biggest Sussex stories since Megxit. On the surface, Harry and Meghan returning to Britain can be presented as a family coming home. Harry reconnects with his father. Archie and Lilibet spend more time with their grandfather and their British relatives. Meghan gives Britain another chance. But behind that very polished explanation are some enormous unanswered questions. Why now? Why so quickly? Why would Meghan suddenly agree to such a dramatic reversal? And what exactly, if anything, is happening with Harry's immigration status in America? Lady Colin Campbell is making an extraordinary allegation that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's sudden move is connected to fears over potential federal action against Harry. At this stage, that remains an allegation, not an established fact. But if even part of what she is claiming eventually proves accurate, then Harry and Meghan's return to Britain isn't simply another attempt at royal reconciliation. It could be an exit strategy. And perhaps the most fascinating part is what happens once they're actually back. Because Harry may be returning to his home country, the country where Diana, Princess of Wales, raised him, but that doesn't mean the royal family is going to open the palace gates and pretend the last 6 years never happened. What do you think? Do you believe Harry and Meghan genuinely want to come back because of King Charles and the children? Or do you think there is another reason behind this sudden move? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy keeping up with the biggest stories surrounding the royal family, make sure you subscribe, because I have a feeling this story is far from over.